UFC 308 was one of the best UFC cards in recent history, and it had 3 insane finishes that we need to talk about. This was one of the most stacked UFC cards since UFC 300, but today I want to break down the 3 insane finishes that happened, because I think that these need to be covered. Let's start with the matchup of Shara Bullet Magomedov against Armin Petrosian, because I think that Shara actually managed to make history here. The main card got off to a ridiculous start with Shara showing his ingenuity with striking. He had come into this fight as someone that many fans saw as overrated, and to be honest, I kind of thought he was as well. His last performance wasn't really the best, he showed just decent striking and very poor ground skills. I was disappointed after his last fight against Michael Oleszewski, where he scraped together a decision victory, but man, did he just shut everyone up. He pulled off what was the UFC's first ever double spinning back fist knockout. The first back fist would connect on Petrosian's arm, barely missing his chin, and it wasn't enough to finish him. That was when Shara Bullet decided to throw a second one immediately after spinning the other way, earning him a knockout finish to get the main card of UFC 308 off the ground. This would prove that Shara Bullet is the creative striking genius that has been paraded heavily by the UFC, kind of giving us Sean O'Malley speedrun vibes. But what's even more nuts is that he actually practiced this double elbow. This was planned, which is just insane. Like, who even comes up with these moves? For a fighter with one eye, it's so impressive that he now has won 4 straight fights since entering the UFC. Although he might be good, he's certainly not ready for one of the greatest middleweights of all time. Izzy is a striking genius who has won the championship belt twice and defended it 5 times. Shara hasn't even fought anyone in the top 15. I can appreciate that he was trying his best to promote himself after a shocking knockout victory. Promotion is a big part of the game now, but there's no way he actually thinks that he could beat Izzy in his current state, right? I don't think Izzy would even entertain this fight because who knows how much longer he will keep fighting. Guy looks pretty checked out, and he's earned it. He's literally accomplished everything there is in the sport. But next I want to talk about this fight between Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev. What was ridiculous was when Whittaker tapped early in the first round of his fight against Chimaev. Whittaker has never lost by submission before in his entire career, and to do so after just a mere few seconds in a neck crank from Chimaev is just insane. But it turns out that the reason why he had tapped so quickly wasn't because he gave up. It turns out that Chimaev had applied so much pressure in his submission of Whittaker that it broke Whittaker's jaw, even causing him to lose a tooth. I mean, this guy Chimaev must have strength like a gorilla. To be able to break someone's jaw and even break off a whole tooth in just a few seconds is insane. Chimaev has been plagued with mystery illnesses recently. This was the second time that Whittaker and Chimaev had been scheduled to fight. Rumors have been going around that ever since Chimaev caught COVID, his body just hasn't been the same. I mean, he went from the most active fighter on the roster to the most unreliable and sick. Either way, this win solidifies Chimaev's prowess. His return to the octagon shows how dominant this fighter really is and that he is finally ready for a title shot. Even though we are all heartbroken for Whittaker, especially since he had been looking like he had regained a second wind in his long career, we've got to give it up for him for being up there with middleweight royalty. And now for the main event of UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi. Max Holloway would be faced against the rising newly crowned featherweight king Ilia Topuria. We all thought that Holloway had the ability and the chin to be the first person to defeat Topuria in his professional MMA career, especially coming off his last fights against Justin Gaethje and the Korean Zombie. I mean, the guy was seriously looking like a threat again. Everyone, including fellow UFC fighters, had high hopes for Max Holloway. I mean, his knockout of Gaethje might literally be the greatest KO of all time. But Topuria had been calling for an early stoppage with his signature boxing power, and he definitely was getting a lot of hate for it, just like in the lead up to his first title fight against another fan favorite, Alexander Volkanovski. What was absolutely out of pocket though was Ilia at the very start of the fight, emoting on Max with his own signature move. The balls on this guy must be insanely huge. The fight was so close, just like everyone had expected. Max was low-key outstriking Ilia as well with some nice hand to kicks and even landing the occasional elbow. But Ilia is just so composed. I can't imagine how much of a nightmare he must be for his opponents. He hides his footwork and his forward advances so well by taking these little steps, and it seemed that Max was having a harder time managing the distance and keeping off El Matador. And something interesting that we keep talking about is Ilia's wrestling and grappling skills. We know that he has an extensive wrestling background, and we also know that he's a BJJ black belt. But damn, he's just so good that we've never even seen him use it, which is just insane if you ask me. but he did show some nice takedowns, taking down Max to switch things up a little bit, and trust me, Max is no slouch when it comes to takedown defense. But what finally got Max was this crazy combo from Ilya. He hit his cross so well behind the hook. Max actually manages to step out of the way from the initial hook, but it looks like his back foot must have gotten caught, which led to him not having enough space and eating a huge right hand from Ilya. This would signal the beginning of the end for Max Holloway. Ilya smelt blood and just came in, broke everyone's heart by taking out Max Holloway for the first time in his career. So that's just how good Ilya Topuria is. I'm actually unsure if there's any featherweight in the world that can beat him right now, but if you think so, who is it? Let me know. Please make sure to like, comment and subscribe if you like the content, because in the crazy world of MMA, there's always going to be more. See you next time on Inside the Cage with Jaffet.